You unlock the door with the key of imagination. Beyond it is another dimension, a dimension of sound, a dimension of sight, a dimension of mind. You're moving into a land of both shadow and substance, of things and ideas. You've just crossed into abandoned history. Well, now that we have my best Rod Serling impression out of the way, I'd like to welcome you all to Abandoned History. Today we're going to be talking about WestCOT. If you don't know what WestCOT is, just think of Epcot, and it's about the same thing, except more west. So in 1991, Disney announced plans to build WestCOT on the site of the original parking lot. It was going to be a lot like Epcot Center at Disney World, a utopian vision for the future. Ultimately, it was never built because several issues arose, including a whopping $3 billion price tag. Now, a lot of that was going to be to acquire all the land around the park. Unlike Disney World, where they actually had the money to buy up 43 square miles of property in Central Florida, so the high price tag for land, along with the financial problems that the company was dealing with the failed Euro Disneyland that's now known as Disneyland Paris, the project was scrapped 4 years later in 1995. Michael Eisner, the CEO of the company at the time, a somewhat controversial figure still today, held a 3-day retreat in Aspen, Colorado to come up with a new idea for a new park. 30 executives were there, and they ultimately came up with a very bright idea, now I say that very sarcastically, to build a theme park themed around California in California. You could see the Golden Gate Bridge, even though it was actually 3 hours away. You could see the Santa Monica Pier, even though it was only an hour and a half away. Now, I'm not really sure what these executives were thinking building a park themed to the state that the park was actually in, but the idea didn't really work out, and long story short, 6 years after DCA opened, they ended up spending another $1 billion to totally redo the park. So that's a little background information on WestCOT. Now we're going to dig into what the park could have been. So much like Epcot today, WestCOT was divided into Future World and the World Showcase. What makes WestCOT really unique and really rather interesting was the way that it was going to work with Disneyland Park. So today, the two Disney's California Adventure and Disneyland are separated by the kind of just a park area with benches and kiosks and whatnot in the middle. But WestCOT would have been a continuation of Disneyland's Main Street. The entrance of WestCOT was going to be a 20th century American town. Think of it as the American Adventure Pavilion at Epcot. At the center of Future World and WestCOT was going to be the center court. It would have had a 300-foot tall version of Spaceship Earth called Space Station Earth. Now, to give you perspective, Spaceship Earth is 180 feet tall, so another 120 feet tall. You can only imagine how massive that would be, because even thinking about it, Spaceship Earth isn't anything to joke about. This was dropped eventually later in the plans, though, because residents were complaining about this massive structure they could see from their houses. So they replaced it with a white spire. Future World would have also had similar attractions to Epcot, including a new Adventure Through Inner Space ride, which had closed at Disneyland, Horizons, World of Motion, Journey into Imagination, Universe of Energy, The Living Seas, Wonders of Life, and The Land. Now, thinking about it today, most of these attractions are closed, so you really wonder what would have happened if these updated versions of the rides would have eventually made their way to Epcot, or how Epcot and Disney World would have changed because of these. So as cool as Future World was going to be at WestCOT, the World Showcase was going to be even better. The main ride here was going to be a boat ride around the nations. There would have been audio animatronics in all of the different countries and regions, such as Leonardo da Vinci painting the Mona Lisa, Michelangelo painting the Sistine Chapel, and Rome on Fire, the burning of Rome, very famous. A clone of the Timekeeper attraction was to be built in the European section. In London, there was also going to be a replica of Big Ben, that's the big clock tower there. There's going to be a New York section that was going to be with the American City Pavilion. So remember, this American Pavilion is at the very front of the park, kind of a continuation of Main Street. There's also going to be Africa, Asia, Paris, Tokyo, China, and Toronto, the exotic city of Toronto, of course. There is going to be, in the Asia section, a Ride the Dragon was going to be the name of the ride, the steel roller coaster. You go through Dragon's Teeth Mountains, and like, you know, the ones you see in a festival dance where the people, you see the feet walking under like the dragon. At the highest point of the coaster, you'd be able to see out of the park and into the following Anaheim scenery. In the African section of the World Showcase, there's going to be a water river ride, similar to the one we have now, the Cali River Rapids at the Animal Kingdom, and Grizzly River Run, I think it's called, at Disney's California Adventure. So that's about the only ride that survived from the World Showcase into Disney's California Adventure, a water raft ride. This would have been themed as a African River expedition. Based on other concept images, there is also going to be a hotel in the park, similar to how the Grand Californian is. This hotel would have looked like Disney's Grand Floridian Resort and Spa at Disney World. So some other interesting things with the WestCOT expansion was the inclusion of 3 new hotels on the property. There would have been the Disneyland Hotel, which is there now, but it would have been fully renovated and remodeled. There would have been the 800-room new Disneyland Resort Hotel, which is a little confusing when you think about it, which would have been based on the Hotel del Coronado, which again is the Grand Floridian style hotel I mentioned before. There would have been the Magic Kingdom Hotel, which is based off of a Santa Barbara Mission. And there would have been the WestCOT Lake Resort Hotel, which would have been based off of the famous Beverly Hills Hotel in Hollywood. The parks would have been connected by the Disneyland Plaza, which is kind of what they have today, that Esplanade in between the parks, except this would have been very state-of-the-art. It would have had a transportation system, a pedestrian pass, people mover. It really was an attempt at a world-class space. Also, there would have been a 5,000-seat amphitheater called the Disneyland Bowl, which would be just outside the park gates, so you can imagine locals going to concerts here, a very state-of-the-art facility, really turning this into a multi-day resort. So that wraps up today's episode of Abandoned History on WestCOT, an abandoned concept that really had so much promise but was killed by financial problems. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Abandoned History. Don't forget to check out the other episodes featuring the Skyway and Discovery Island and River Country. Very interesting stuff with those. If you have any suggestions for future episodes, leave it in the comments below or send me a message. So this has been Codemic, and I hope you enjoyed the episode. Don't forget to like, favorite, subscribe, and I'll see you guys real soon. We have some awesome things coming up in the Abandoned History portfolio, including some other guest narrators here, and some interesting new concepts that we haven't seen before. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys real soon.